What Michael Jackson never told you about Diana Ross. It wasn't just admiration. It wasn't just mentorship. It wasn't even just unrequited love. What Michael Jackson felt for Diana Ross was something much deeper, something sacred, obsessive, and at times painful. For decades, fans believed they understood the relationship between the King of Pop and the Queen of Motown. But beneath the stage lights and scripted smiles was a tangled web of longing secrets, betrayals, and unspoken truths that Michael Jackson never dared reveal while he was alive. Until now. Imagine this: a young boy prodigy, barely 11, finds himself living under the roof of one of the world's biggest stars. She's everything he's ever dreamed of, elegant, powerful, magnetic, and he calls her Mama. But behind that innocent nickname was a fire of romantic yearning that never burned out. Michael Jackson once called Diana Ross his mother lover and friend. But why? What really happened during those quiet nights they spent together? And why did he name her in his will, choosing her to raise his children if his mother passed? Now imagine discovering that Michael spent years pining after Diana, showering her with expensive gifts, building a literal shrine in his home with photos and candles burning 24/7 just to keep her spirit close. He proposed to her twice, and each time she walked away. Not because she didn't love him, but because the world wasn't ready. The media would have crucified her. His family would have disowned her. And perhaps she never truly wanted to be his. Then there's the song Dirty Diana. We were told it was about groupies. But was it hidden in those verses is a rage only lovers know, a rage born of heartbreak? Michael poured his pain into music lyrics sharpened by betrayal. Diana heard it. She knew. And her silence spoke volumes. Their story wasn't just a love story. It was a war of passion, reputation, control, and legacy. It was about two icons who could never fully have each other yet, could never fully let go. And even in death, Michael's final tribute to Diana, entrusting her with his most sacred gift, his children, was a haunting reminder of a bond that defied labels and time. So buckle in. What you're about to uncover is not just a story of two stars. It's the unfiltered, unfinished tale of what Michael Jackson never told the world about Diana Ross. Subscribe now to Legends of Black Excellence, and stay with us as we unravel the secrets buried behind fame, music, and a love too complicated to name. To understand the depth of Michael Jackson's obsession with Diana Ross, we have to rewind to the beginning, before the moonwalk, before Billie Jean, before the glittering gowns and spotlights. This isn't just the story of a pop star and a diva. This is a story rooted in childhood yearning, artistic admiration, emotional imprinting, and a complex intersection of fame and family. Michael Joseph Jackson was born on August 29, 1958 in Gary, Indiana, the seventh of 9 children in a working-class black family. The Jackson household was strict, governed by a steelworker, Father Joseph Jackson, who ran the family like a boot camp. Catherine Jackson, Michael's devoutly religious mother, tried to nurture her children's dreams. But Michael often said he grew up with no childhood, rehearsing day and night with his brothers, forced to perfect every note, every spin, every smile. That environment, harsh, demanding, and devoid of softness, created in Michael a deep hunger for affection, approval, and emotional safety. So when he met Diana Ross in 1969, at just 11 years old, she was unlike anyone he'd ever encountered. She was glamorous, powerful, affectionate, and most importantly, nurturing. Diana was 25, a superstar at the peak of her Motown reign with the Supremes. She walked like royalty and spoke with purpose. To young Michael, she wasn't just a pop idol. She was the mother figure he wished he had, the fantasy crush he couldn't resist, and the artistic muse who made stardom seem like magic. The official story that Diana Ross discovered the Jackson 5 was a carefully crafted Motown myth. In truth, Motown CEO Berry Gordy signed the group after hearing about their talent from Bobby Taylor. But Gordy, ever the marketing genius, made Diana the public face of their discovery. He even released the Jackson 5's first album with the title Diana Ross presents the Jackson 5 to leverage her star power and introduce them to white audiences. That PR stunt would forever link Michael's legacy to Diana's, even as their personal connection grew far beyond the cameras. What most fans never knew was that in 1969, as the Jackson 5 relocated to Los Angeles, young Michael actually moved in with Diana Ross. For a year, she became his guardian and emotional anchor. It wasn't unusual in the Motown world for stars to mentor younger acts, but this relationship was different. Michael called her Mama. He mimicked her movements, her tone, her poise. She became his ideal of beauty and femininity. According to Katherine Jackson's autobiography, My Family, Michael adored Diana so much that he often told his sisters they weren't pretty until they looked like Diana. That kind of admiration, that deep psychological imprint, shaped Michael's identity and relationships for the rest of his life. And Diana, she wasn't blind to his affection. She welcomed it. She adored the young boy's energy, his talent, and the way he looked at her like she hung the moon. But she also knew how to keep him close without making promises. It was a dynamic of subtle control, one built not on malicious intent, but on emotional ambiguity. Diana became the center of Michael's emotional world, and he became her biggest fan, her emotional shadow, and eventually, her mirror. As the Jackson 5 exploded in popularity, Michael remained fixated on Diana. She was his blueprint for success, from the way she commanded a stage to the way she handled the press. Even his solo career bore the fingerprints of her influence, elegance, mystery, control. They collaborated publicly in 1977's The Wiz, a musical adaptation of The Wizard of Oz, featuring an all-black cast. Diana played Dorothy. Michael played the Scarecrow. By then he was 19 and she was 33, and their bond had morphed from mother-son energy into a simmering, undefined tension that confused even those closest to them. Behind closed doors, their relationship blurred boundaries. There were late-night visits, prolonged silences, coded references. Michael's biographers often mention how he confided in friends that he wanted to marry Diana. Some even claim he proposed more than once, and yet she always pulled away. Publicly, she smiled and laughed off the rumors. Privately, she kept him tethered just enough to maintain emotional control. Michael, meanwhile, began to show signs of emotional damage from the uncertainty. He carried a photograph of him and Diana in his wallet everywhere he went. He built a room in his mansion solely dedicated to her, filled with photos, portraits, and candles that burned around the clock. He believed, according to his spiritual advisor, that keeping candles lit before her image would spiritually bond them, an idea he picked up from a childhood superstition. The pain of not having Diana the way he wanted slowly etched itself into his art. While fans danced to Dirty Diana, few realized it was a song born from betrayal, not lust. It wasn't about random groupies. It was about her, his Diana. And he wanted the world to know, even if she didn't approve. According to Quincy Jones, the original lyrics were so direct that anyone could tell it was about Ross. Quincy begged him to change them to mask the heartbreak as a generic rock star complaint. Michael relented, but Diana knew. She didn't speak to him for weeks. Michael would later write in his 1988 autobiography, "Moonwalk Diana Ross was my first love. I will always love her." Those weren't throwaway words. They were emotional confessions from a man who could never fully express himself outside of music. When Diana married Norwegian shipping magnate Arne Næss in 1986, Michael was crushed. He had believed up until then that she would choose him. That hope, fragile as it was, shattered that year. Still, he didn't let her go. Even after her wedding, rumors persisted that Diana would occasionally visit Michael alone sometimes while pregnant. Their emotional tether was never really cut. Meanwhile, Michael's relationship with his own mother suffered due to his obsession with Diana. Katherine Jackson was fiercely protective and didn't trust Ross. She believed Diana manipulated her son's emotions and kept him emotionally dependent. At one point, she told Michael that Ross was too old and would ruin his image. She even went public speaking to tabloids, an act that strained their already delicate relationship. As Michael aged, his identity became more fractured, and so did his relationship with Diana. She became less accessible, raising her children and dealing with her own demons. Struggles with alcohol, failed rehab attempts, and a 2002 DUI arrest that shocked her fans. But through it all, Michael never spoke ill of her. His loyalty, even when one-sided, was unwavering. In 1995, when Michael was hospitalized, he had his then-wife, Lisa Marie Presley, removed from his room to prepare for Diana's visit. That's how serious it was. And when he wrote his final will before his death in 2009, he made a stunning declaration. If his mother, Katherine Jackson, were unable to care for his children, he wanted Diana Ross to be their guardian. That single act, naming the woman who once refused to marry him as the potential mother to his kids, was the final tribute in a love story that defied understanding. Michael Jackson and Diana Ross were never just friends or collaborators or family in the Motown sense. They were a slow-burning off-rhythm ballad that never quite found its chorus. What he saw in her was not just a woman, but a force, someone who held the keys to his emotional origin. And what she saw in him was perhaps a reflection of her younger self, a dreamer with impossible talent and a dangerous need to be loved. Their bond began in innocence, was nurtured in fame, and was scorched by unmet expectations. But it never died. Because in the end, even the king of pop, the man who had the world at his feet, still carried the photo of a woman he could never truly have, and never stopped calling my love. The rise of Michael Jackson and Diana Ross wasn't merely parallel, it was interwoven. Two of the most iconic names in music history. Their careers often intersected, influencing each other in profound, often hidden ways. While the world celebrated their success in public, few understood how deeply their private dynamic fed their artistry ambitions and ultimate legacy. By the late 1960s, Diana Ross had already transformed the image of black female stardom. Born in Detroit in 1944, she grew up in the Brewster Douglas housing projects, far from the glamour she would one day embody. At age 15, she joined a group that would become the Supremes. Under the mentorship of Motown's Berry Gordy, she was quickly elevated as the lead, with Gordy rebranding her image to appeal to both black and white America. By 1964, the Supremes had become Motown's most successful act, scoring 5 consecutive #1 hits. Diana's voice wasn't the most powerful. She lacked the gospel thunder of contemporaries like Aretha Franklin, but her tone was unique, soft-poised, breathy, controlled. Paired with a dazzling stage presence and Berry Gordy's marketing genius, Diana became the face of crossover success. She was now more than a singer. She was a symbol. But with fame came friction. By the late 60s, tensions between Ross and her bandmates were palpable. Motown rebranded the group Diana Ross and the Supremes, signaling that her solo career was imminent. In 1970, she officially left the group and released her debut solo album, which included the hit Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Her solo career soared eventually, earning her a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination for Lady Sings the Blues, 1972, where she portrayed Billie Holiday. Diana had successfully crossed over not just racially but artistically, becoming a triple-threat singer-actress and icon. As Diana ascended into solo superstardom, Michael Jackson was watching closely and learning. In the early 1970s, the Jackson 5 exploded onto the scene. Under Motown's tight control, the five brothers were marketed as America's most lovable family band. Michael, the youngest lead singer in pop history, instantly stole the spotlight. His soulful delivery, polished dance moves, and natural charisma made him the crown jewel of Motown's next generation. Songs like I Want You Back, ABC, and I'll Be There topped the charts and turned the Jackson 5 into a phenomenon. Yet Michael never felt fully free. Like Diana, he was caught between the spotlight and the script. He longed for more artistic control, deeper storytelling, and a personal identity separate from his brothers. And in Diana, he saw someone who had done exactly that. She had left her group, taken creative risks, and emerged as a solo superstar. She was the blueprint. By the mid-1970s, Michael started pushing for solo work. He released 4 solo albums under Motown, but it wasn't until he left Motown for Epic Records that his true potential began to unfold. His breakthrough came in 1979 with Off the Wall, a collaboration with producer Quincy Jones. The album's mix of disco funk and soul was electric. Songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You made it clear Michael Jackson was not just a former child star, he was a solo artist in his own right. It's no coincidence that Off the Wall dropped just as Diana Ross reached a transitional point in her career. She had recently starred in The Wiz 1978 alongside Michael, a film that didn't succeed commercially, but marked a turning point in their relationship. Behind the scenes, Diana had begun pulling away from their intimate connection, exploring her new marriage to Arne Næss, a Norwegian billionaire. Michael left emotionally raw, poured that longing into his music. His songs became more personal, more vulnerable, more desperate to define himself. Then came Thriller, released in 1982. Thriller became the best-selling album of all time. It broke racial barriers on MTV redefined music videos and turned Michael into a global phenomenon. But the emotional undercurrent of the album, the loneliness in human nature, the anger in Billie Jean, the yearning in The Lady in My Life spoke volumes about where Michael's heart was. He was now a megastar, but his soul was still searching for something or someone. In private, Michael still maintained a spiritual connection to Diana. He kept her photos on his wall in his wallet, even burning candles around images of her in what he called a protection circle. Friends and collaborators said it was clear Michael's art, especially in the early 80s, was saturated with references to her. He even performed with her in several tributes, including the famous 1984 American Music Awards, where she kissed him on the mouth wearing what fans later realized was his engagement ring. Diana, meanwhile, wasn't fading. She was evolving. In 1981, she left Motown after more than 2 decades and signed a historic $20 million contract with RCA Records. It was the largest recording deal for a female artist at the time, giving her creative control and independence. Songs like Muscles, written by Michael Missing You and Swept Away, revealed a woman unafraid to show sensuality and grief. She was reinventing herself again, just as Madonna would later do, but Diana did it first. As Michael shattered records with Bad 1987, Dangerous 1991, and later History 1995, Diana's commercial success began to wane, but her cultural stature remained intact. She became a matriarch figure, respected, legendary, and increasingly private. Still, Michael never let go. In interviews, he continued to reference her as my love, my inspiration, and the person who believed in me first. His liner notes in History read, "To Diana Ross, my love and admiration for you is deeper than ever." The world marveled at Michael's talent, but few knew that behind the record-breaking albums, epic tours, and moonwalking magic was a man haunted by what could have been. Diana Ross remained his unreachable dream, the woman who had shown him what stardom looked like but never allowed him to fully share in her world. Their fame was a mirror. Diana had been sculpted by Motown into a product of elegance and restraint. Michael had been trained to smile on cue and move like lightning. Both knew how to give the world what it wanted, but they also knew what it cost. And perhaps that's why they were always drawn to each other. Because behind the awards and platinum plaques were 2 children of the spotlight, aching for connection, terrified of betrayal and unable to truly trust anyone who hadn't seen them before they were famous. They rose together in a way. Diana blazed the trail. Michael moonwalked through it. She taught him grace. He gave her legacy a second life. They were never truly one, but they were never fully apart. And as the world screamed for encores, they looked to each other for something more powerful than applause understanding. Behind the polished performances and iconic duets, there was a silent torment that neither Michael Jackson nor Diana Ross could ever fully speak aloud. Their relationship wasn't just about fame or admiration, it was an emotional maze filled with illusions, heartbreak, denial, and a longing that never truly ended. The world saw Michael as the king of pop, a genius with a golden glove and a moonwalk that could stop time. But inside, Michael was a fragile soul shaped by childhood trauma and a desperate hunger for love. And in Diana Ross, he found what he believed was the cure to every wound he ever carried, until she became the wound herself. Michael never truly healed from his complicated relationship with Diana. While she was his muse, she was also the source of his deepest romantic pain. He loved her in a way that blurred all the lines between mentor and partner-mother figure and object of desire. But Diana, she loved Michael in return, just not the same way, and not enough to face the consequences. Twice Michael believed she would marry him. Twice she said yes, and twice she walked away. She feared the backlash. He was 14 years her junior, a man-child molded by fame. Public perception, career pressures, and judgment from people like Katherine Jackson all swirled around them. And Diana, ever image-conscious, chose safety over scandal. This rejection became the seed of emotional chaos for Michael. He began to question his self-worth and identity. Every time he tried to move on, she reappeared affectionate, playful, flirtatious. It was like she didn't want to be his, but couldn't stand him belonging to anyone else. Her mixed signals tore at him. Michael confided in close friends that Diana would show up unannounced whenever he was seen with other women. When he went public with Madonna or Brooke Shields, Diana would find a way to reclaim his attention, sometimes on national television. One of the most revealing incidents happened at the American Music Awards in 1984. Michael arrived with Brooke Shields. Diana Ross, scheduled to present, spotted them from the stage and began blowing kisses to Michael. When he accepted his award, Diana grabbed him, clung to him, flirted, and even forgot her lines. To many, it looked like fun. But to Michael, it was another reminder she wanted him close, but only on her terms. Then came Dirty Diana. Michael wrote the song as a direct response to his heartbreak over Diana Ross. Originally, the lyrics were scathing. The second verse was so damning, Quincy Jones begged him to rewrite it. He warned that the world would know it was about Diana, and it would humiliate her. Michael agreed, changing the story to make it sound like a song about groupies. But the pain in the first and last verses was unmistakable. Diana knew. She was furious. She didn't speak to him for weeks. Eventually, she forgave him. Not only that, she reclaimed the song. In a bold move, Diana began using Dirty Diana as part of her concert intro, flipping the narrative and showing the world that she wasn't going to hide. But beneath the showbiz surface, a storm brewed. The emotional whiplash of his connection with Diana fed into Michael's growing insecurities, distrust, and increasing need for control in his relationships. And when Diana married Norwegian billionaire Arne Næss in 1986, Michael was crushed. He reportedly sobbed for days, believing she had promised herself to him. Even worse, there were whispers that Diana secretly kept seeing Michael during her pregnancies, something he neither confirmed nor denied. Their distance grew. Diana began building her family and navigating her own battles. In 2002, she was arrested for driving under the influence, her blood alcohol level more than twice the legal limit. This wasn't just a minor mishap. Diana had just left a luxury health resort where she was meant to be in recovery. Her reliance on alcohol became more visible. She had walked away from love, but her personal life was spiraling behind the scenes. Meanwhile, Michael's mental health began to unravel in the 1990s. Pressured by the public, hounded by the media, and tortured by childhood scars, he retreated further into himself. He surrounded himself with people who wouldn't challenge him. His obsession with privacy grew, and his fixation on Diana never quite faded. In 1995, when Michael was hospitalized for exhaustion and stress, he ordered security to remove his wife, at the time Lisa Marie Presley, from his room. He wanted privacy for Diana Ross. She came to visit. He prepared for her arrival as though he were a teenager again, lavishing her with affection gifts and time. His love was frozen in time. After Michael's death in 2009, the world discovered one final truth that he never spoke out loud in his will. He left instructions that if his mother, Catherine, was unable to care for his children, Diana Ross would become their legal guardian. He had never let go. Even in death, he trusted her with the most sacred part of his life, his children. But this emotional inheritance was heavy. Diana never publicly explained why Michael chose her, nor did she contest it. Instead, she mourned him with a quiet dignity. When the documentary Leaving Neverland aired, unleashing new allegations against Michael, Diana was one of the few major artists to stand by him. On Twitter, she wrote, "This is what's on my heart this morning. I believe and trust that Michael Jackson was and is a magnificent, incredible force to me and to many others." She ended her statement with lyrics from her most iconic song, "Stop in the Name of Love." Was it guilt, loyalty, or just the echo of a love that never truly died? What we know is this: Michael Jackson never stopped loving Diana Ross, and Diana never truly let him go. Their relationship was never simple. It was emotional, chaotic at times, toxic, but it was real. And the truth is, no one else will ever fully understand what passed between them. Because some stories aren't meant to be explained. Some loves are only meant to be endured. In the end, the story of Michael Jackson and Diana Ross wasn't about fame, music, or even scandal. It was about a love that defied definition. It wasn't a fairy tale romance or a mentor-protege bond. It was something more complicated, more human. It was a love that never found closure, a connection that slipped between the cracks of timing, age, and public expectation. Michael carried Diana Ross in his heart until the very end. Not as an ex, not even as a friend, but as the one who shaped him, broke him, inspired him, and haunted him. She was his idea of perfection, of femininity, of safety, and stardom, all wrapped into one. And no matter how successful he became, no Grammy, no sold-out stadium, no platinum plaque could ever take her place. And yet the great irony of their story is this: while the world celebrated them as untouchable icons, both were fighting private battles that their fans never saw. Diana, beneath her sequined gowns and commanding stage presence, quietly unraveled under the weight of emotional instability and addiction. Michael, beneath his rhinestone glove and revolutionary artistry, was just a boy, still waiting to be loved the way he loved her. The final revelation came not through words, but through ink on paper, Michael's will. He could have named anyone, his siblings, his staff, his closest friends. But he didn't. He named Diana Ross as the guardian of his children should anything happen to his mother. It was the ultimate confession. Even in death, he trusted her with the most sacred part of his life. Because no matter how many times she pushed him away, he still believed she was the safest place for his legacy. Diana never spoke publicly about why Michael chose her. Perhaps she didn't need to. Perhaps deep down she knew. And perhaps that silent understanding, the kind that needs no explanation, is what truly defined their bond. So what can we learn from this unfinished love story? That even the most powerful people in the world still ache for love. That not all connections are meant to be fulfilled, but that doesn't make them any less real. That sometimes the people who break our hearts also shape our souls. Michael and Diana's story wasn't perfect, but it was unforgettable. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most human kind of love there is.